Hello, this is James Barkell and you are listening to the Coach Doctor Podcast. In today's episode, I talk with John Novak. John is an athlete mindset coach and the director of the BoomerangEffect. I first came across John in my early days of coaching. We hit it off immediately when discussing the importance of mindset in sport. Since those days, over 14 years ago, John has worked with a range of elite athletes from over 40 sports. More recently, one of the athletes he works with, Melissa Wu, won the bronze medal for the 10-metre platform diving at the Tokyo Olympics. John also works with an elite rugby league, currently with the Manly Sea-Eagles, and has been involved in 3 NRL grand finals, including 1 premiership. You'll be able to hear from John's voice that he's a high-energy guy with masses of positivity. He's a former martial artist himself, and he brings that energy into his passion for coaching elite athlete mindset. I hope you enjoy the chat with John and take away a lot of learnings from his thoughts on elite sports mindset. John, thanks so much for joining us today.
Absolute pleasure to be here, and it's so nice to be here given that we both know each other for how many years has it been now that we've
I was trying to think of that, mate, and I think it was probably around 2008 that we came across each other's path initially.
Well, you're my eldest son's coach,
yeah,
and in a representative team, so I feel really honoured and blessed to be talking to you today.
No, it was great. Well, we I think we hit it off straight away when we started speaking and talking, and found that we had a lot of similar interests, and especially some of the work that you're doing, or the work you were doing back then and still doing now and developed now.
Yep.
It's stuff that's really always interested me, and it's great to see how far you've come in those number of years that we've known each other. It's been fantastic.
Yeah. Well, you too, Doctor.
I felt trying to follow your coattails. John, tell me a bit about your background first of all, and how the BoomerangEffect started or came into fruition.
So I thought I'd just hit some headings first, and I did a little bit of preparation thinking about it because, as we were saying before we went and we're filming this, there's a lot that's happened over a long period of time, and I'm finally benefiting from years and years and years of doing lots of different things. And when I summarise that, I can see the foundational principles of coming to the BoomerangEffect. Because my background's martial arts. I'm a 3rd Dan black belt. I got that in my early 20s. I've had 3 karate schools, national representative for a long time, winning 2 national kickboxing championships. So there's a martial arts component. Then there's a fitness component. So since 18, I instructed aerobics. So before I retired in 2000, I did 5,000 aerobic classes. So I did a lot of fitness, and it was on television. And so I worked a lot on developing messaging, developing excitement, inspiration, instead of just saying the information and hoping that everyone will just get it, like we do academically, like we have that in common with my 3 academic degrees. I wanted to make it exciting. I wanted to make it uplifting. And I think I learned that on jumping up and down and getting people to go, woo, yeah, all that excitement stuff. And then doing a national television show called Oz Aerobics. I also led people by example. So this is the thread, and this is the part that preceded going out there and developing the formalized, systematized BoomerangEffect, which has been incorporated 15 years, but the traces of it go back to when I made a comeback when I was 33 as a fighter. In the first part of my career, my body was as good as anyone. I wanted to be the world champion as anyone in the world, and yet the bane of my life was the mindset, which I never nailed, because the sport was high voltage, high energy, a lot of energy, frustration, and then just calming the farm and learning how to do that. I made a comeback at 33 to 38, read Martin Seligman's work of A Learned Optimism in 1991, and then went out and had another go and was immensely successful, I have to honestly say, in those critical moments where I would have just folded, thinking, oh, well, there's no way I can win from here. I'm 4-0 down. It's up to 6. The competition was actually in this last Olympics, the exact thing that I was striving for to get to a world championship. was actually hosted this year in Tokyo. So I came back, and everything that I share now was based on that 5-year comeback from 33 to 38, where it didn't matter what happened, I still always gave myself the best chance of success. So they're the key elements that led into being clear about the mindset, juxtaposed with an academic background of philosophy and politics and law. I put all of that together, the Platonian Socratic method, and came up with my wife, who's an occupational therapist, with the boomerang effect.
Okay. And just for those who might not understand, what does the boomerang effect actually mean as the term?
So the boomerang effect is what you put out is what you get back. So we coined those words because I thought it was very indigenous, and it made a lot of sense that in my words, thoughts, and action, if I'm angry, in my emotion, if I'm angry, in my thoughts, if I'm angry, it's really hard to be effective. So the boomerang seemed the most logical symbolism and metaphor for what we're trying to aim at, and that is finding a place of comfort, peace, to allow the techniques that your body never forgets to be able to be executed and to be capitalized, instead of suddenly you get there, lose your head, and you forget what to do, which is not true. It's actually incorrect. Your body never forgets, like driving or walking across the road. You just do what you need to do. So the boomerang effect was put out the right energy, put out the right thoughts, put out the right body language, and you'll have a better chance of succeeding than not doing those things. So what you put out is what you get back.
Yeah, and I know one of your catchphrases is positive 24/7, and you've got that on your hat right now. Is it hard to maintain a positive mindset 24/7?
Oh, yeah. So this is the utopian, idealistic version of being wildly optimistic. The reality is COVID, we're in the middle of it. How do you stay positive in a situation for some that's unbearable? And I find that fascinating, because an elite athlete's experience is all about dealing with the things that would appear to be unbearable, but still finding a way. So I see the link between projecting the best I can and dealing with the stuff that seems insurmountable, most difficult. So if I aspire to greatness, if I aspire to doing the best I can in every moment, and if I come a little less, if it's a little less than 24/7, that's okay. Because what normally happens, mate, is that we come in there going, it's not my day. And let me tell you, if you think it's not your day, I guarantee you it won't be your day. As Henry Ford said, if you believe it to be so, or you don't believe it to be so, you're probably right. It's not the exact quote, but to that effect.
Yeah, great.
So yes, it's hard, but if you're there, as I tell all my athletes, if you're there 80% of the time in adversity, you're going to have a good shot at allowing your technique to be actually presented to your opponent or to the circumstances at hand.
Yeah, and definitely just being in there in that moment, those important moments, you're able to maintain that mindset.
Yeah, it's always there, and I've got what it takes.
Yeah.
So that's your default has to be, I have something.
Yeah.
The default is your subconscious state that we will work on all the time. Is what do you say when it gets tough? And what you say is, oh no, here we go again, or oh, I didn't do that again. A drop ball. If you're a catcher in a sport like rugby or like rugby league.
Okay. So if I'm correct, you initially started working with golfers, and since then you've grown into as many as 40 sports, and you're now working with both individual and team sports. Tell me a little bit about this journey from the early days up until now.
So before going full-time as a mindset coach, I went full-time as a mindset coach in 2000, but I'd already had nearly a decade of work with sports. Like I started with my first sport in aerobic, world-class aerobic athletes. Then I went into basketballers, and my first one was Shelley Sandy. Then I started to have a whole bunch of athletes from Cranbrook and the elite team there, two of which represented Australia. Yasmin Dunn was one of those. Then I took on the New South Wales karate team. And then I started to work with bodyboarders and different teams. Like I worked with the Beasties a long time ago. And then finally, after my body totally, like I had a physical breakdown, in 1999 and 2000, where I couldn't actually move anymore, and started my new career, opened up an office in Bondi Junction. And in that office, it was the full-time life coaching mindset stuff before we actually called it mindsetting. But it was really, how do you optimize and maximize your mind? And since then, it's gone into 45 different sports.
Wow.
Does that give you a bit of background?
Yeah, definitely. No, that's fantastic. So it's started off, in little bits and pieces here and there. And as you progressed, it grew and grew, and it's become basically, your life now.
Oh, and then 2006, we incorporated the name. So 2006, 15 years ago, we incorporated the Boomerang Effect, but we were using all bits and pieces of all of it. So my wife and I, in all the different forums that we're in, because she was doing the work in occupational therapy at a leading hospital in Sydney, Australia, and I'm doing it with elite athletes. And we thought we were saying it's the same sorts of things. So she's in mental health, and I'm into the mental health of succeeding, optimization, maximization. So we put our energies together and said, hey, I think we can work on this together, and then use the principles of both places and see what the common ground was. So that's how we come up with the Boomerang Effect.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
John, one of your athletes you've been involved with, Melissa Wu, just achieved a bronze medal in Tokyo to add to her Commonwealth gold in the women's 10-metre platform diving. Tell me about the mental processes involved in diving and how you may have addressed those.
Well, I actually prepared a few words for myself to think exactly what we were working on, but these are the key words that we work on at this elite level, because it was 8 years. That's the culmination of 8 years of work with her. So we first started working together literally 8 years ago. She's had a couple of Commonwealth Games, lots of gold medals, and then coming 4th and 5th at the Olympics, and this was her 4th Olympics. And then we sort of came together again, and about 4.5 months ago, she said, I want to do this consistently every week towards the Olympics. First, we had the Nationals, and at the Nationals, she succeeded brilliantly with a number of 10s that she hasn't achieved in her career. And then going to the Olympics, the key themes that we were working on is, and this is something that's not normally talked about, it's allowing, which allowing is getting out of your way, essentially allowing. And you could say trusting or backing, or things like recognize your body never forgets. Surely Melissa Wu, 4 Olympics on, knows more than Melissa Wu when she first started when she was 13, and she accepted that. She also accepted that it's always there. She also accepted that the way to allow her body to do what it takes will take calmness, will take stillness, will take peace, and will be distraction free. And to do all that, the meditative, mindful, the visual self of being peaceful in calamity is exactly what we worked on. And that was multiple conversations, multiple visualizations, multiple mindfulness exercises. But with the caliber of athlete you're talking about, you set a task, and we've been working together with the Boomerang Effect since the beginning of it. So not the beginning of it, given that it's 8 years, but using the strands of all of that throughout the beginning of our whole professional relationship. So we had a lot of a platform before we did the last 4 months. But yeah, they're the key words: allowing, flowing, trusting, peace, stillness, and calmness. That was it. Going 60 kilometers an hour in 1 second.
Yeah.
So 1 second, 60 kilometers an hour, you either get it or you don't. And that's where you need to trust, believe that it's always there. Does that give you enough? I can go further, but does that give you in a nutshell what we were doing?
Yeah, it does. Now, you might be able to sort of build on that, I guess, in my next question, because I wanted to also ask, what's the difference between working with individual athletes such as Melissa Wu or someone like James Magnussen that you've worked with previously as well, compared to working in a team environment? Is there a different in terms of the mindset, and even across individual sports, like a swimmer compared to a diver, or is it pretty much the same thing?
Good question, and I think it's a great question that you're asking of me. Is what am I trying to do? Let's break this down to, here's the second. There's the second. So in that second lives the now. In that now there's a whole bunch of things happening. There's something physical, there's something mental, there's something emotional, there's something trust, faith, or belief, or spiritual, there's something environmental, and there's some preparation that you rely upon. In every breath, in every second, these things coexist.
Yeah.
Boom, boom. So every second and every breath, that inhalation is based on all of the work I've done previously, all of the stuff I believe I am, and all of the stuff that your body never forgets, because not just imprinting here, because it actually is trained to trigger a certain way by just starting the process again. It never, ever, ever forgets. So that's the same with every athlete. Does that make sense up to now?
Yes, that makes sense.
Nail the moment, nail the second, whether you're diving or you're making a hit and a tackle, or whether you're hooking, jabbing, or you're sprinting in a pool, all exactly, three-pointer, exactly the same. Probably the biggest difference before I go into teams is stick with the athlete. The biggest difference is energy, like boom, energy, peace, energy. So my archers or my climbers, everything is absolutely X-game athletes. They're different energy you need. So the team that I work with now, you might see the picture behind us, it's Manly Sea-Eagles, and I've been working with them with Des over a 10-year period with Des, but this is my second term. Every athlete needs to nail his or her best self. Yeah. Every athlete needs to get mind, body, emotion, spirit, preparation, and environment right in the second. But what energy is required from a homeostasis place, at this equilibrium here, up or down, varies tremendously from sport. It was pointed out to me by one of my golfers in Texas yesterday. He was talking about, oh yeah, but I've seen Tiger go rah, ooh, and I said, do you know what kind of training Tiger did with his father Earl? May he rest in peace. What training he did to get to a state to actually do that and to use his energy and not get overly excited and overly energized, to move out of his energy flow. And he went quiet. Now the quiet is, if you don't practice that way, if you don't understand what it takes to go whoa and then find peace, you're going to be derailed. So knowing that's important. So we're still on the individual. Are you okay up to now? Do you want to ask a?
Yeah, no. I just quickly going back to that, thinking about each 1 second as a separate time period. I really like that idea, because if something goes wrong in this second, I'm not going to live in that moment. Next second, I'm focusing on that next
Boom.
second. And I think that's really important, and that's a really good thing for you to identify, because as people in general, we always tend to think back to that moment that happened, what we could have done, and that detracts from the moment that we're in now.
Bang.
And that's
living in the now.
Yeah.
So living in the now, if you break it, I break every event up to the exact seconds they have in performance. So an NRL game, a rugby union game is 4,800 seconds. So every second, what is the excellence that's required for you to reproduce the best of you? What excellence? And then there's a whole bunch of things, as I said to you. So we've got technical, tactical, strategic, we've got the physical, we've got, the training to keep, because athletes, they get a bit fatigued, start losing it, make errors, then think that they can't do it. Before you know, it's a bad sorrow. Boom! That's called a negative boomerang. So that happens, but each second is still a choice. So in the program, the choice is, will what I'm doing in my words, thoughts, and actions and emotions help me, or will in my words, thoughts, and actions in my emotions hinder me? Hinder, bad boomerang. Help, good boomerang. And when they get clarity on it, I can tell you categorically now in my anecdotal history that when they know exactly what's required, it's just absolutely simple. It's simple because you're going, this is my plan. I will nail the moment, nail the breath. If I don't cross, I will nail the next 10, because that, as we say, whatever doesn't kill us make me stronger, ignites me to perfect myself, like Csikszentmihalyi talks about in flow. That's the indication that something needs to be altered. It isn't a mistake, only a mistake and a loss if you didn't learn. Duh.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so
it does.
I haven't got on the team yet, but it's the same thing at the moment.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Okay, so feeding on the negative, if you're in a team and something happens, like you've got the ball, like we're talking rugby and league or soccer or something like this, you've got the ball, you're dominating possession, you're hitting the line, you're hitting, but you're not producing a goal or a try. And then suddenly it swings and it goes the other way. Everyone walks around dejected, and suddenly the momentum's gone. And even though they dominated play, had the possession 70 to 80% of the time, they suddenly get lost because that one thing they're looking backwards on and not realizing that this is the very thing that should inspire them to move and get better. So there was a coach, I won't name who, that played us recently, said, oh, it's unfortunate that that first minute went the way it did. And all I thought about was, yeah, I know it was a really crappy minute, but the game before that, we had possession of 30% against Melbourne Storm, and then we ended up in the 45th minute of the game after halftime at 14-8, winning against them. And we had hugely against us because we nailed the moment after it. Whereas the team that I'm talking about, that I don't want to identify because it's not about putting anyone down, you had 79 minutes or copious amounts of seconds where you actually got 4,760 seconds to go, something like that.
Yeah.
However, if it wasn't for that first moment, implying that it's all connected, it is connected if you look at it that way, but it's totally in you now. If watch, new moment, new opportunity.
Yeah.
New moment, let's go and let go.
Yeah, so that might have been an example of them focusing too much on that initial moment rather than all the following moments after that.
Well, I always have a difficulty with the NRL nail the first 6 sets. Whether you nail the first 6 sets or not, the presumption in that is that you've won the game in the first 6 sets.
No,
there's no way that you can win a tennis match in the first 6 games. In fact, the ones I train will see that someone who's big in serve and they're serving 200 something Ks an hour, sooner or later the percentages will go down. But you just got to keep standing, delivering, cross, lost that one. I'm going to win the next 20, lost that one. And then you'll see it'll change. The momentum will change when after 4 big serves, you'll see that it's hard to sustain because the person gets a bit subconscious. This is why this is all mindset and execution and understanding of what's going on to be able to derail your opponent with your consistent application to the little things in the breath.
Yeah, I guess tennis brings up a question that I just thought of. Games like tennis and cricket, batters tend to have they have these form slumps where they tend to be brilliant for 2 or 3 months, and then all of a sudden they'll have one bad game that leads to a form slump. How do you deal with those sorts of things?
Well, I would like to compare it to golf, I suppose, because in golf we talk about your A game, we talk about your B game and your C game. At the top level, the C game, your C game with an 80-20 mind, which means 80% of the time you're positive. If you can have a C game, you make cuts at the top level. So it means you can do any shot, you can drive, you can punch, you can flop, you can shift, you can change, you can do anything you need to do. All of the top golfers can nearly do anything they want to do. Like the top 500 in the world in tennis can do anything they want with the racket. They've got serve, they've got weight, they've got slice, they've got cut, they've got everything. Now, what's the difference? So with the C game, if you're making cuts, and I've proven this hundreds and hundreds of times over the time in 20 years, when you have a B game, where you've got a B, you're not making cuts, you're making top 20. You've got a B game, but an A plus mind game. If you get an A plus mind game, which is 90% positive and 10% negative, you will consistently be up there in the top 20, 15. If you get your A game, well, it's time to shoot the lights out. It's in another wavelength. But golfers, predominantly at the elite level, are playing in their B game. And they're saying, yeah, I might have had, like Golden Bear said, I'd have 3 to 4 shots that go, that was absolutely flushing it. What does that mean? That means there's 60-something shots that he wasn't. but you manage to do it as long as you don't get too hooked in it needs to be like this way, which is expectation.
Yeah.
When an athlete has an expectation, everything's just going to flow and everything's just going to get going. They don't realize the reality is that you're not kicking at your best always. Every tackle's not perfect. So we deal with wild, imperfect action with a zealousness and passion. So that's kind of like reality basing people to what the game of sport's about. It's imperfect. It is not perfect unless, like some of my athletes, world-class athletes that are archers, and even within the 10, there's movement that's within the 10 mark. And that's realizing that there's not a specific dot that you're aiming for, but a region of excellence. And that region of excellence is far greater than when you start getting that negative and your body drops and you get into a mood. What you're talking about is sustaining a mood that's uncomfortable, perpetuating and wondering why you're getting the same thing all of the time, because you're creating it.
Okay. Nice.
That's why.
Nice. It's an interesting, I guess, psychological mindset to think about how these, and as you said, golf, tennis, cricket, they really spring to mind being some of those sports where there just seems to be a lot more pressure on the mind of some of those athletes, and they dictate, players might be brilliant one day and then all of a sudden their form turns and they're off the mark for a couple of weeks or sometimes a couple of months.
Yep.
So interesting.
Sometimes, well, Shark said, Greg Norman said, I could be lost, and Steve Williams said, watching him, he could be lost because he was his caddy before Tiger. He could be lost for, it could be a round, it could be 2, it could be a month, it could be 4. And he actually said, Greg Norman, if I would have had a mindset, which I know is going to be one of your questions, if it would have had a mindset person, someone in psychology, I could have won. Like, it was one of the silkiest swingers of all time, swinging that ball, one of the most beautiful swings in the world, but he won only 2 majors. Why? Because he didn't get this right. He got so angry with himself. His inner critic, he just was unleashing his inner critic with the 70,000 thoughts that we have in a day, and finding that 90% of all of his thoughts were negative, wondering why he can't swing the ball. That's why, because you don't practice in negativity.
Yeah.
And this is the opposite to positivity. People go, oh, positivity, what's positivity about? It's the opposite to negativity.
Yeah.
So positivity means you look at every breath in a way that what you trained is always there. That's a positive state of being. It's not a negative state of being. It's a positive. And this is one of the things I'm really going out and challenging people on. People say, oh, you can't be positive when you can't do that. Well, you definitely can't do that negativity because you're stuffed.
Yeah. No,
you can't even be 50-50. If you're a 50-50 positive, negative person, your result's going to be like that person. Sometimes I'm good. It depends on my technique. It doesn't depend on anything. You nail your attitude and you give yourself a chance. Your body never forgets. Game on. That's what goats do.
Yeah, okay.
That's called self-actualization, by the way.
Yeah, okay, nice. John, going back from those comparing individual athletes to team sports, you made a mention of comparing, I guess, collision athletes like rugby league players to someone like, again, Melissa Wu, a diver who has to be in that peaceful moment, as opposed. So how does that work in terms of staying positive but being prepared for those big collisions? And what's the basic idea or premise behind that in terms of mindset?
Well, by the time people are listening to this, you will know whether or not the team that I'm working with now, how far they went. Okay. So the exact thing that we always work on is getting our positive loops or boomerang right. And what we're working on is putting out the right thoughts and the right emotions, whatever happens. So if we get sad, if we get frustrated, if we get doubting, if we get annoyed, angry, all of those are negative loops. And if you're sending out an emotion like that, all you're going to get is contagiousness. So contagion theory, Lasada's contagion theory, is you keep saying those things, you keep experiencing those thoughts, you keep experiencing those feelings, you'll get those thoughts. it becomes cyclical and you'll have no chance. So this year's all been about, you got to get in that woo energy. If you're in that energy, you're starting to see that in the battle and in the adversity, you've still got to remember moment to moment, breath to breath choice. That's called bounce back.
Yeah.
Bounce back is, let's go, lift. So when something happens that you're unhappy, that's undesirable, that's the critical moment to respond with all of the best self in mind, body, emotion, spirit as one. So that's where you come together for a couple of sets and make a difference to change the momentum instantly. The best teams do that.
Yeah. Okay.
How's that sound?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So I guess, and just to build on that question, the team you're with at the moment, the Manly Sea-Eagles, if I recall correctly, first 3 games of the season first 4 games of the season lost fairly heavily. And I think everybody wrote them off and said wooden spooners. Now you're pretty close to the top 4. And I think looking at the team's form, probably going to finish in the top 4. So, and I'd say probably also one of the best results against Melbourne, in quite a while as well.
Whether we do or don't get to the top 4, to me, they're only lessons, and we're only growing as a team. We keep growing because where we're growing, our culture's growing, our brand's growing, our simplicity of messaging is growing, everything's growing. And for me, this is not just this year. It's always each person, and like working with the 2 wingers at the moment. One's created history in Manly, and there's a lot of talk about what's been going on with Ruben, and he attributes the work to what we've been working on together through the visualization, through the simplicity, the acronyms that he's using. So everyone's going to be growing. What happened in the first 4 rounds? People say, oh, Tom Trbojevic wasn't there. But in the fifth round we won without Tom. Yes, he did come back, and yes, it was a close affair, but we found a way. What we were working on is what I was telling you. What we're working on is putting out the right emotions. That is the joy of playing, the gratefulness of what we're here to do. Even though they're in lockdown up at Queensland and we're in New South Wales, what they're doing is developing this close-knit bond of oneness. That's the collective, collaborative spirit that every team, that's called buy-in. If someone's going off and going into a different direction, that's called weakest link. We have a joke about weakest link. What's the weakest link? So that's a person who is not fulfilling not just their role, but not like buying into the narrow scope of what we're trying to do in every breath. What are we trying to do in every breath? Win the moment. If we don't win this one, win the next 10. And we do that to the last, that's 4,799 seconds to the last second. Boom. And that's what we finally got. And yet we had that in 2019 when Des and I came back from the Bulldogs. We had that, but COVID made it really difficult because we had the difficulties of the communication, and some people were going in different directions. And there's been a change of the guard as well. There's a tightness and connectedness there that's perfectly symbiotic at the moment, which I don't know what's going to happen exactly because there's a lot of variables. Having won 1 grand final and lost 2, there's a lot of variables. But do I think that they've got everything they can take? And has the pendulum swung for the first 4 rounds? Yes. Do I think that they've got everything? Does that mean that they're going to win a premiership? Well, I know we'll give it a shake because the people are too good not to do that. What exactly will happen? Well, I'm not a soothsayer and I'm not a clairvoyant. I'm just John saying, if we do this, we've got a better chance. If we do that, we've got less of a chance.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. And I guess that leads me to the next question. You worked with Manly, the Sea-Eagles, in 2011 when they won their grand final against the Warriors, and then 2 subsequent grand finals with the Bulldogs. But tell me a little bit about that process in, I guess, specifically with 2011 when the team won the competition. What was some of the things that I guess come to your attention that you think are real standout moments in the group, if you can think back that far, because I know you've had a lot in between.
I can think a lot about 2011 where I was. I had an academic position. I was a lecturer of sports management at a college called ICMS in Sydney, Manly. And I did like 10 face-to-face presentations. I did the big rah-rah at the beginning in January 2011. And, you know, they liked the message. I became one of the team members with my mindset. I collaborated with Des the whole time. So that means every game I gave my version of what's important. And then I had my touch points, my 10 touch points through the year. And then I talked to 3 people throughout the whole year. Now I'm talking to up to 10 to 12 people through the year, if not more. But everyone's getting messaging now, say today compared to then. But the step in between, let's talk about that for a second. So I have this academic position. I'm head of school. Des asks me, we win the grand final. He goes to the Bulldogs, says, would you come on full time? I accept going on full time. I get this role called head of mine management, the first full-time position in this country. Todd Greenberg employs me, head of NRL. Now I'm not there. And Des, and we create this role. I create all of it from grassroots level of the extrinsic motivators around the gym to the teams, the development, the message, all the touch points, the intrinsics. And it was a massive experience of being full-time. It's a dream come true to take that role and take that position. If I talk about the loss for a second, or the 2 losses, we were the team to beat in 2012. Like, we were it. We were like Penrith last year, actually. Penrith lost it in the final to a team that was, you know, wise and understood their game brilliantly. And we lost to Melbourne in 2012. We had a phenomenal forward pack. And we had the circumstances of the game. I understand the game really well. We won the minor premiership that year. So undoubtedly best statistics in everything to win a minor premiership. But in the grand final, things can happen. Things did happen. That was the so-called the bite that didn't happen year. So, which is a long story. But it was a learning lesson and we were on the front foot when that huge fight happened, and then I think we got a little derailed. And look, it is what it is. For me, the second time around, we faced a juggernaut in South Sydney, a game that you couldn't think they could lose. We were there. We made it from 7th position to the GF. Another learning experience. We fought our way from being lost, making our way through the semis, and then getting to a position where we're fighting a team like South, who everyone like on planet Earth who was interested in NRL was backing. And that first contact of a broken cheek of their opponent actually drove them to the greatness. And it just, look, we didn't have our captain in that game with Mick Ennis, and there he goes on in Cronulla. He wins the game. He wins the grand final in 2016. Look, my role has changed tremendously. Like, now I'm a part-timer, but I'm in contact with everyone through the week, and it's predominantly on screen because I can't be in the bubble part-time. But I'm full-time in the respect of talking to athletes, continuing to talk to the coach, staying with the playing leadership group, talking to all the athletes like I did in my full-time role. Sorry to go on. It's changed and it's morphed. Even before you said my first foray, in 2009, I started at the Roosters. And with the Roosters, I was with Freddie. And Freddie reluctantly took me on to first grade to avert coming last because I was working with the 20s. And he actually, every time he sees me, you know, I got you into the NRL, like, oh, Freddie, whatever, dude. Like, he's a good friend. Like, I see him as a good mate. And I did get an opportunity to work with first grade, but the team did still get the wooden spoon. And then next year, from the wooden spoon, I ended up well, not next year. Next time I was in the NRL, I got an opportunity where we won a grand final. So who knows? Let's see what the pendulum swings like this time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that sounds great. That sounds really good, John. You work with both sports and also now have sort of gone into the business world. How does your message of, you know, that positive mindset 24/7 transfer into business?
Yeah, I suppose when I was looking at your question, thinking about it, I wrote one thing to myself. And when I met Des, and said, we have something in common. And he was at the college and they were doing cooking exercises in 2010. I approached him with one sentence. And I said, we have a lot in common. And that is, it's the consistent and intense application to the detail that makes the difference in all of sport. And he just looked at me and, it's all history now. We've been together all this time. When you talk about the consistent and intense application to the detail, that's not intensity. Some business idea, like I work with $2 billion businesses at the moment, and intensity of one nature, different physical intensity, but maybe cerebral intensity. But I like to replace intensity with intent. The consistent intent to nail the detail is similar.
Yeah.
Nailing your emotional state is similar. Nailing your best self is similar. But probably the critical difference is athletes, if you want to win something, you just got to do it. So that's when we get will, fight, and desire coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Will, fight, and desire in a business sense, in a team. Some of my people work with, their team within $1 billion business is 60 people. A person who's chopping and changing from job to job, that's not. Yeah, you could say that happens in sport, but really, you don't chop and change your sport. You're doing your sport, you might change your coach, but your deliberate fixation on excellence in the breath, you don't chop and change. You actually get deeper and deeper and deeper. As Moses said, the famous 400-meter hurdler, he said that athletes are about the science of detail. I don't know how many business people are into the science of detail. So there is differences, but enthusiasm, willingness, peace and calmness in adversity, all the same, but there's glaring differences, and I need to recognize the forums I'm in to be able to identify the differences and also highlight the similarities.
Okay. And I guess that leads me to the next question. How important do you feel a mindset coach is to performance? If we were able to graph performance, what could we see as a result? Is it possible to see?
So say what you were going to say.
I was just going to say, is it possible to, I guess, measure how much influence a mindset coach can bring to a team?
Yes. Well, there would be a lot of people that would attribute a grand final to the little I played in it. And some would say more than what I just said. And I'm not here to, Johnny, I never did it. Obviously, you got a superstar coach who's won a grand final before it, but it helped at that time. It helped clearly at that time. Every one of the players have said that to me personally. Or not everyone. At least 2/3 of the team that I've talked to in the period would say, that helped, Johnny, thank you very much. So that's a private conversation that I don't go out of my way to be telling everyone in the world that they do, but some would say that the boomerang effect helped a fair bit. Do I think it's important? I think that looking at some of the teams that are going on, like there's some rugby teams that could do with one consistently instead of chopping and changing from them. And I've had a couple of goes at some of these teams that I prefer not to mention. It's the consistent application to the messaging. Because in my world, everyone's got something to say. And people will say, don't worry about that positivity. You just need to be empty. People don't know what the heck empty means. George Bumford, who's the right-hand man of Phil Jackson in the 11 rings that he won, says, George Mumford helped me. But no one knew a George Mumford. No one really knows who I am. And I've been with Des. This is my 11th year with Des. Oh, actually, there was that year that we stepped down. So I've been in touch with him for 11 years. How do you quantify mindset? Like, he's not an idiot. He's a very, very smart man. And it's important. It's important attitudinally. There's a technical, tactical, strategic part of performance, and there's a whole bunch called the attitudinal part, and that's the way you perceive everything and anything. We're starting to see that's a specialty. Alex Ferguson had people around him like that. Greatest NBA teams, all NBA teams, all of them have someone. How do you quantify it? It's just everyone's important in the team. So my standard stock answer is I played a small role in it. So I'm not here to say I am it. It's not about me. It's cohesion and collaboration and symbiosis. It's creating a union instead of saying I'm the best. No coach will ever say that. You as a coach never said that. All of the people come together to make something special. And it would appear now to have someone who's an expert in the area is going to give you a better chance of succeeding. Definitely gives you more insight into things that don't help.
Yeah, I think it's almost like when you break down a performance into each second, you can break down the preparation for a team or for an athlete into each percentage or each component of the performance. And by employing a mindset coach, you're getting the best possible chance to get the most out of the mindset component of their preparation.
Yep.
Than not, I guess, employing a mindset coach. So,
can I just add to that point? Because
sure, yeah, go for it.
Because in all the criteria of excellence, like let's talk catch and pass. Catch and pass, receive the ball anywhere as a soccer player or throw the ball. There's a technical component. With a better mindset, with a growth mindset, you will, which is curiosity, interest, and openness. By having curiosity, interest, and openness, you actually learn better. So you're not going, oh, you can't tell me anything. Wait a second. If you play tennis and you can't cross-court topspin, you need to be taught something. But if your attitude's wrong, you won't be taught something. Therefore, you haven't got a growth mindset because you think you know everything. So mindset coaches can be used in a bunch of different ways. And my role is not just talking about what happens in the millisecond. When someone's not performing, I'm also talking about the 168 hours of a week, because athletes are there 40 hours. What happens in the 128 hours or the 20 hours is really important to the performance of the team. Are they consistent with what we want to do, or are they doing things, whether it be gambling or all the other big four major distractions and addictions, whether it be alcohol or sex or all those things can be distractions. How you deal with that impact on the performance of the athlete. That's all your mind. Are you addicted to those behavior because you need to release dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin? What is it? What's going on in your life? Because if you understand what's going on in your life, you're actually enhancing and bolstering, and that's all mind. You're analyzing the mind to become the best you can in every breath. Anything that goes into your mind in 168 hours and relationships is important to you to put your best foot forward. So I can go on and on and on and on because this is my life in this area. But that gives you a bit of a glimpse. Is it quantifiable? For me, we do something called P&N ratios. What's your number for the amount of positivity you have in a day and negativity? So that's kind of mainstream positive psychology. In the Boomerang Effect, mainstream positive psychology and Zen Buddhism. So the Zen Buddhism is the calmness with Melissa Wu, the cup, the water, it's always yours, flow energy, that's all that. The positive psychology is always give yourself the best chance of success. The more you believe that what's quantifiable? Was I positive or was I negative? And the self-observation can give a number. Athletes that can stay, I know we want this, 80, like 8 and 2, 80% positive and 20% negative, you're going to have a better day than what happens when the technique goes bad. The opposite happens. It's 20% positive and you're ridden with negativity. That is quantifiable. I will show you a golfer that has one bad hole and they're lost for up to 3, 4. The round could be gone from one mistake, and they're playing a 6-kilometer course. It's like billiards on a 6-kilometer, 7-kilometer course, and they expect that there will be no mistake, which is ridiculous, counterintuitive. If you get this positivity negativity ratio, right, anything can happen.
Okay, and you're saying that if you've got 80% positive, you're on the right track.
Yes. So you definitely got to know that negativity is the scourge, enemy, and that's the corrosiveness. So forget about if you're not into this positivity garbage, because that's Pollyanna stuff. It's not, for me, it's not. Being wildly optimistic is the only way to achieve greatness. If you're not wildly optimistic, you will never be a GOAT. The best of the best of the best always talk about positivity. There is no debate. It's just the ones who actually never really done it we talk about, is it okay for me to be negative? Well, yeah, it's okay to be anything, man, but you got to believe so deeply that anything can happen at any critical moment. The whole field can fall and Bradbury still made a way. Like, is that positivity or negativity? Well, I don't know. He definitely wasn't negative. He didn't sort of turn around and go, no, he just had to present himself. Oh, I don't know if that's negative or positive, John. That's just luck. Okay, well, you'll have more luck not being negative, okay? Because what you put out is what you get back.
Yeah,
What
no,
do you
100%.
think about all that? What do you think?
I'm a massive believer of it all. We've known each other for quite a while now, and I've really enjoyed listening to your messages. I've been to a few of your seminars, and I've sat in a few of your athletes' talks. And mate, I really enjoy it. And I think my question about comparing business to sport, I think it can be for everything, for your whole life. I mean, as a parent, I try to focus on more positives than the negatives. I mean, having two young children, there's plenty of things that they do wrong and plenty of times you get cross with them, but you've got to maintain that positive mindset with them to be, I guess, the best parent I can be. So for everything in life, I think that positive. And, if you're on the road and someone cuts you off and you sit there in this negative vibe, you're not going to drive well. You're going to be more likely to have a car accident after that because you're in that sort of angry state. And if you're in that negative state, you're not making good decisions. And I think that's the main point. If you're in that positive state, you're more likely to make, good decisions and comfortable decisions.
Yeah. So that's the perfect part of having a wise mind. So you're not too emotional with it, or you're not too just so-called rational about it. But there's a wise mind is you're using your gut. These are the center power places, because I'm a martial artist, remember? So your chi energy resides around behind your belly button in that place. So you use your gut, you use your heart, and you use your mind. You put those three power centers together, woo! Anything can happen, man. When you are centered, and when you're centered, when you're angry, you're not centered. As a fighter, if someone got angry, I knew I've got him. I will take that person apart. And I don't care how big they were. Some of my history is beating so-called Dolph Lundgren, superstar guy. And people, were you scared fighting a guy 6'5" when you're 5'9"? It's not about being fearful. It's an opportunity to see what you can do as a martial artist. And if I am centered in my core strengths of my chi, my heart, and the wisdom of my mind, and you see actual metaphorical line or an imaginary line there, you will find something that's far greater than just being here in your 70,000 monkey mind thoughts. That's the aim, to find your power spots and deliver what your body's trained. So exciting, this space. Like every day people say, do you enjoy it? I don't just enjoy it. This is my purpose of being. I do this all over the world now. As you know, I've got clients everywhere, and the Boomerang Effect is flourishing everywhere in the world that we're going. And now we've got clients in Europe and South America and America. And I'm just, every day is just this wonderful opportunity to show who else you can show the glory that lives within them. Woo!
Yeah, great. Well, John, thanks so much, mate, for spending the hour with me. I really appreciate it. As I said, I know you're a busy man. You got a lot on, so I really appreciate it. I'm not sure if you want to quickly just give the Boomerang Effect or John Novak Sport a quick plug in terms of websites or.
Yeah, so John Novak. So there's John Novak Sport and there's Boomerang Effect. So maybe will you leave?
I'll put some.
Leave that? Yeah,
I'll put that on the show notes, and so
if any. And all the social media, sorry to interrupt you, mate. All the social media there, LinkedIn, Insta, like everyone else, I'm on everything. Twitter. If you hop on the website, you'll see there's an e-version of this book. So last year we wrote 6 books. So mine's Mindset Hacks. So there's 3 for golf, and there's 3 for general sport. So it's just be the champion. Get it much cheaper if you go to the website as opposed to going to Amazon. So that's a hint. Don't tell anyone at Amazon. So all of that you'll know. But look, for me, whether anyone's interested in this kind of stuff and they wanted to work one-on-one and all that, or whether it be in a team, every person have these so-called discovery calls, James, meaning I want to know if you're ready, because to me, my work's crystal clear. I know what I can do. It's whether you're willing and open, growth mindset, to go with this stuff. And because the magic's in every one of us, man. Everyone who's trained at an elite level could do something special, as long as they get out of their way, as long as they tame the beast, and as long as the inner critic is completely and utterly downtrodden and smashed. The inner critic is the corrosive negativity. I'd love to give anyone the opportunity to work as long as they're ready. If they're not ready, I'm not your man.
Yeah, no, that's great. And just on top of that, you don't just work with elite athletes. You're happy to work with up and comers.
I have elite athletes, but to me, the joy, like I have 8-year-old clients, like 7-year-old clients, as long as they're smart enough, because I asked Melissa Wu, when do you know? And she said, you can look in the eyes of a 9-year-old and you know when they're ready. My daughter, who's an elite 11-year-old New South Wales runner, you could tell, like when she was 5 and 6, that the kid wasn't a kid. Like some of them are just so much more mature. So it's got nothing to do with age. It's got something to do with willingness and openness to improve. So thank you for pointing that out.
No. Thanks very much, John. And I'll post all those contact details in the show notes, so that if anyone wants to get in contact, any coaches or athletes, they're welcome. Thanks so much, John.
It's been a pleasure. All the best to your listeners.
Cheers. Thanks, mate.